Stand Neil Now What, Season 3, Episode 22. Interview with Catholic young adult fiction author Leslea Wahl. Hi, my name is Karen. I like to say that I'm the good kind of Karen. I am first and foremost a daughter of God, a wife, mom of two, and I recently came home to the Catholic Church. I love my faith so deeply that I want others to love it too. Whether you are a cradle Catholic, Catholic curious, or you have come home to the Catholic Church as an adult like I have, Stand, Kneel, Now What is the show for you. Through my love and lots of blunders, my goal is to help you along your faith journey. Our paths may be different, but all of our roads need to lead home so that we can be with our Father. All right, everyone, welcome to Stand, Kneel, Now What? I'm your host, Karen Estep, and on today's episode, we have author, mom, traveler, founding member of CatholicTeenBooks.com, Leslea Wahl. Hi, Leslea, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. This is so fun to be able to chat with you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I am so excited you are here. And we're going to talk about some really important things and just get to know each other, get to know more about the books that you write and why it's so important for our Catholic teens to be reading fiction that is meant for them. And so before we get started, though, this will be the last time we're saying this prayer for the month of June, because the month of June is the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So here we go, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. O Sacred Heart of Jesus, to thee I consecrate and offer up my person and my life, my actions, trials, and sufferings, that my being may henceforth only be employed in loving, honoring, and glorifying thee. This is my irrevocable will, to belong entirely to thee and do all for thy love, renouncing with my whole heart all that can displease thee. I take thee, O Sacred Heart, for the sole object of my love, the protection of my life, the pledge of my salvation, the remedy of my frailty and inconsistency, the reparation for all the defeats of my life, and my secure refuge at the hour of my death. Be thou, O most merciful heart, my justification before God thy Father, and screen me from his anger, which I have so justly merited. I fear all from my own weakness and malice, but placing my entire confidence in thee, O heart of love, I hope all from thine infinite goodness. Annihilate in me all that can displease or resist thee. Imprint thy pure love so that deeply in my heart that I may never forget thee or be separated from thee. I beseech thee through infinite goodness, grant that my name be engraved upon thy heart. For in this place I for in this I place all my happiness and all my glory, to live and to die as one of thy devoted servants. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Whew, that's a lot. That's a
The
long
beautiful
prayer.
prayer.
It is. It's beautiful, but I'm kind of glad that this will be the last episode with that, because I've messed it up every time I've prayed. All right, Leslea, tell us just a little bit about yourself and some more about your books, especially your new release called A Summer to Treasure. I'm really excited to hear about that one.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much again for having me. I'm a writer, obviously, of mostly teen fiction. I have a picture book out too, but I kind of have always so far focused on novels for young teens, anywhere from, actually like sixth grade up through high school. Some of the books are for. And just, I got into writing when my kids were my oldest was actually only in fifth grade, but he was such a great reader, kind of advanced, that he was searching for more YA books to, stimulate him, and they were a little longer. But it was really hard to like find anything decent. There
Mhm.
were so
Yeah.
many. Yeah, I wasn't even looking for faith-based, just anything clean fiction, and I kept looking and looking and couldn't find anything, and kind of was like, why can't I find these, God? And then this idea for my first book, The Perfect Blind Side, just popped into my head.
Mhm.
and felt like I was supposed to be writing this down. I'd always been creative, but never tried to write a story. And so I worked on it, and it took a long time because, as I said, I didn't know really what I was doing, and it took a while till it was ready and polished and ready to publish. But I've been writing ever since. And A Summer to Treasure is my seventh published book. And this one's a little different. Most of my other books have like they're what I love to read: a mystery, adventure, some humor, a little innocent romance, and then the faith as well.
Mhm.
So that's kind of all my other books, but this one's just a little different. It's about sibling relationships mostly. So it's about a summer road trip that a family goes on with the parents, the three teen siblings, and the grandmother. And there's like, they don't know why they're going on this month-long trip. And grandma was really insisted on it to recreate something from her childhood. And as the story goes on, they're trying to figure out, is she sick? Is there something she's not telling them? Uh, and as it goes on, kind of the mystery of what's going on surfaces and so forth. But it's also about the sibling relationship. So I have three children, and they are always my inspiration. But how they can be such siblings who have such a unique relationship because
Yeah.
they're your first and forever friends, really. But there's all these dynamics of things, and so this kind of goes into why they haven't been getting along and what's going on in their lives that they don't know about with each other, and also technology. I kind of touch on, and how especially cell phones. The kids are just so into their phones that they kind of miss some of what's going on in the world. So it's kind of a bunch of different topics that are in the fun adventure.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I can't wait to actually get my hands on them because I think I would love them. So you kind of touched on it just a little bit. What is your inspiration when you're writing books? Like, where do you gain all of this, what you want to write about?
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, the first book just came to me, but after that, I just kind of get an idea. And so I've heard there's like two different kinds of authors: the planners who kind of plot it all out and have it all set, or the pantsers, writing by the seat of your pants, basically. And that's me. I just kind of start with either a character or some idea, some kind of something in the plot, and I just start writing. And it's kind of so fun. I think it's my favorite part because I don't really know where it's going. I just start writing, and you kind of go off on tangents, and somehow it comes together in the end. But sometimes I'll have to go back if I like have a great idea for a twist, and then I'm like, oh, I got to go back and make sure it all fits. But it's kind of fun. But yeah, that's how my brain works, I guess, just kind of scattered.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how mine is too. Like I'll get all these, I always heard it when I was little that when you get ideas, they normally come at like 11:30 at night or whatever. And that has happened several times to me where I'm just opening my notes app in my phone and writing down all these ideas I have and then putting it away. That way I don't forget when I wake up because I'm one of those people that if I don't write it down right when I think it, then it's gone.
Exactly. That's so true. Yeah, I had numerous times, especially with the first book, because my kids were still fairly young, and I had to drive them everywhere. So a lot of notes were jotted down, like in car line or at, you
Yeah.
know, soccer practice or whatever was going on. And then I'd go back and kind of work on it later. But you just have to
Yeah.
get those ideas down when they pop into your head.
Yeah, my dad he's also a writer and he just keeps a journal with him at all times so that when he's got an idea, he can pop it down real quick. So, why do you think Catholic young adult fiction is so important for writers to write and then also so important for our kiddos to read?
Mhm. That's such a great question because it's something so near and dear to my heart,
Yeah,
obviously. But especially nowadays. I mean, I thought when my kids were young, it was difficult, but it just keeps getting worse and worse. They just get bombarded through songs, TV shows, their phones, everything. And it's usually some kind of worldly message. And it's,
Mhm.
even if you try so hard to protect them from that, it's still coming at them from different aspects. And so I just think Catholic fiction is so great because it can be fun. I think sometimes there's, with Christian or Catholic books and novels, people have this idea it's going to be preachy and boring and that kind of thing. And it's not what I want to write or any of the authors I know write. You just have fun, exciting stories, but with messages of faith, or for instance, like characters of mine that, if something's happening, they'll shoot a prayer up to God, or, so it's just, I like that there's, and those are the characters my kids knew too, like the people, because they went to Catholic schools and they knew people like that. So it's like, why can't we have
Yeah.
role models in fiction that are like them, and that they can turn to and sometimes get ideas on how to uh, face some kind of issue or problem in the world and so forth. And one thing I've discovered and heard from some different parents that if the kids, it's often hard to talk to teens about topics, maybe
Yeah.
you have, some people are lucky and they don't have that issue, but often it's, they kind of don't want to talk about anything. So through fiction is an interesting and easy way to bring up topics. So if you read the book together, or you read it while they're reading it, but you could just be like, oh, that was interesting. So you're able to address some of the topics of life and how to deal with things in a safer way because it's through a character and a story, as
Yeah.
in their life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then how do you just manage it all? We kind of talked about that before we hopped on and started recording, but how do you manage, keeping all of your things with your kids going and then also making sure that you fill yourself spiritually? I just had an author on and we talked about the importance of, as parents, it's kind of like when the oxygen mask comes on, especially with our faith, like we need to make sure that we are a full cup so that we can fill their cups with the faith. And just we were talking about just like putting our chuckleheads, that's what I call my children, into summer camp so that I can work on this, so that I can do this. And like, so how did you manage all of that as a writer and a mom and a traveler and a wife, and what are your
Yeah.
tips?
Yeah, it was much more difficult when they were younger, because you need that time for yourself. And I try to just have some prayer time and always reflection books to be going on. But the writing time was so hard to find. But now my kids are all adults and away, and so I have now a lot more free time. Although he's still trying to always, still be a mom and visit them and, do all the things. And now we're traveling more. So just, he's still trying to find the time to write is sometimes difficult. But I do. And it's interesting because I did not grow up Catholic. My husband was a cradle Catholic, and we would take the kids to church and school. They went to Catholic school and everything. But we kind of, it was in 2018. There was a special Jubilee year that year. And we went, and it kind of, kids were already teenagers, but it kind of transformed all of us into a deeper level of faith. And it's interesting because the three kids, one was in college, one was senior year of high school, and the one other was in middle school. And they grew so much in their faith individually that year, and kind of we are always learning from them now. So it's really
Yeah.
kind of so fun now that they're adults and we get together because we can like talk about all these issues, and they often know so much more than we do because they ended up going to Catholic colleges, and so it's just such a blessing that we still have this faith together, and in a way we kind of grew together in the faith in an interesting way.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So, because, I didn't realize that you are a convert and I'm a convert as well. My husband and I came in about 3 years ago into the church. So, what parts of the faith do you feel are the easiest to write about when you're putting them into your book? And what parts of the faith do you find kind of difficult to write? But it's all beautiful, right? Like we have this beautiful church that we're members of, but there are still some things, especially as a convert, that I still go, I don't really get that.
Exactly. And it's taken a while. And so the first books, even though they were, it was a Catholic publisher and they mentioned that the characters are Catholic, it was more just kind of a Christian, because that was
Right.
where I was comfortable with. And since then, and as my faith and understanding and the knowledge of the Catholic faith has grown, I started incorporating more into each book, just a little bit, not over the top, but just like a concept that I know because I had them. So many Christians don't understand. And I thought
Mhm.
this is a perfect opportunity since I understand where they're coming from. And it's my opportunity to kind of try to explain it in an easy way. So, for instance, in A Summer to Treasure, this new book, there's a character, a side character, and he's notices the one teen. She has a crucifix necklace, and he says, "So I hear, that Catholics like worship Mary and saints, and I don't
Oh,
get that."
yeah.
And she's like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." And then she's like, "Because it says in the Hail Mary, we're asking for your prayers, so you're supposed to help us, pray for us." So just little things like that, and I never really knew if it was making a difference, but there was a review that just came out for this book, and I wish I could find. I don't have exact quote in my in front of me, but it was something like that. This person's like they're written from a Catholic perspective. However,
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
but it was explaining some things that I didn't know about the Catholic Church, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it worked!" Like
Yeah.
somebody actually, you know, took something from that, so it made me happy. But there is so much, and there's so much depth in the church, and I agree. There's so much when you're not don't grow up in it. It's sometimes hard to get your mind around some of it, but, but
Yeah.
there is so much beauty and so forth in it.
Well, I love that like your character stood up for the faith too, because I taught one section of freshman theology last school year, and I'm always telling my students, be sure you know about our faith so that you can defend it. And I love that you write characters that know about the faith so they can defend it, because I feel like that is something that teenagers are going to be up against a lot now. I mean, I'm up against it even on Instagram. And, if you've been a listener for a long time, you know that I get into tips often on Instagram with people and their lack of knowledge or misunderstanding of the Catholic faith. So I think it's beautiful that you've written characters that know the faith, that defends the faith, because, you know, um, confirmation is done in the Roman Catholic Church, when the kids are teenagers. And a lot of times we have this thought that, they get confirmation and then their next sacrament is maybe a marriage, right? And there's nothing to do in between. And I told my students, even my English students, I'm like, no, this is when you start. This is the start of it. This is where you defend the faith and you go forth and you proclaim the gospel, and you have to know your faith so that you can share it with others. And they kind of look at me like I'm crazy, but
That
I'm like,
is such,
no.
oh, that is such great advice for them. That is so true. And yeah, and to be able to, and I feel like I'm not good about that. And I pray about it, like, give me the words to say when I come across these things, because it's easy for me when I'm writing and I can go back and edit 10 times to
Yeah.
make it sound nice. But in the moment, you really need to know it so you can defend it and say something. And we all do have gifts and talents to in order to share God's love and message with others. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Those students take that to heart.
I hope so. I'm trying to make a difference, one one chucklehead at a time. And so I put in your bio, that the little opening intro, that you are a traveler because you just did an amazing trip. Can you tell us a little bit about your trip to Italy and the things you got to see with the new pope and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, we in 2018 went on the special Jubilee year, and this year was the annual Jubilee year. So we had planned it out for almost a year when we were going, and our kids were going to come for a while. We were gone 3.5 weeks. So the first week the kids were going to be with us, and then the second 2 weeks a little bit alone, and then some friends were joining us. And our daughter wasn't able to come this time. She's expecting a little baby, and so
Oh,
so she wasn't able to come, but the boys did. But so this was a trip, yeah, like I said, planned long ago. Had no idea, and like a week before we were about to leave, we hear the news that Pope Francis passed away, and so we're like, okay, well this is really changing. Who knows what we'll find there and so forth. So we were actually there. We went to after the funeral, so that was weren't there for that. But they had started. They were getting ready for the conclave when to pick the new pope when we were there, and it was fun to see all the like we were walking up the to go on a tour at St. Peter's, walking up the steps, following our tour guide, and all of a sudden this enormous work truck starts going up the steps of the Vatican of St. Peter's Basilica, and we're all like, "What is that?" The tour guide is like, "I've never seen that before." Well, it turns out they were hanging the big red curtains where
oh
the
yeah.
around the balcony where the new pope would be announced, and we were able to see where they put the because it's not always there the smokestack for the smoke off the Sistine Chapel. So and so it was just an excitement, a buzz around the whole time. And then with our boys, we it was the first day of the conclave, and we went back to our Airbnb, which had this amazing view of St. Peter's Basilica, the Dome. And we just sat there and we watched, waiting for the black smoke to come.
Yeah.
And a day before, we had gone to a winery and picked up a bottle. It was cardinal wine, so it had like
Oh,
a priest cardinal on the. So we were all ready, to toast. So we were able to see the black smoke, and then we were actually in. We weren't in town when the white smoke came through.
okay.
We were in Loretto, which is a whole amazing story of that. But anyway, we were there, watched on TV, and it was so fun because we were all like texting friends back in town. And then my husband and I, we were going back to Rome the next week, and we actually got to go to the inaugural mass.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
Pope Leo was so close, like it was people in front of us, but he, had the Pope Mobile going by, and we brought things to have blessed by him. And so, but the crazy thing is, we were so excited, but the idea of standing in a crowd for like hours for that
Yeah.
mass sounded terrible. So we were like, okay, I don't know if I can stand that long. So our plan was to maybe go to church somewhere else and then go by. And then my husband and I both woke up in the middle of the night. We're like, no, we're here at this unbelievable time. We have to go. So we did. And it was so amazing to be in this crowded area in the square there with everyone so excited from all walks of life, every country. You could hear so many different languages spoken around you, and
Oh,
everyone was
that's
just
cool.
so amazing. And then, as you know, with the Catholic Church, it's amazing because they did the mass, and most of it was in Latin and Italian, but because
Yeah.
it's the same always. So you know what is happening, and it's just so. It was really such a emotional thing to just be in that moment with so many different people from all different countries, all celebrating that together.
Oh, I bet. And I have a feeling you're going to write a story. Like yeah, you're talking and I'm like, I bet there's a character she could write that's experiencing this too.
Yeah, that's how the mind always works, right?
Yeah, yeah. So for those of us that are interested in writing, so we have talked about this in email and there's just I hope that there are a lot of Catholic writers out there that listen to this podcast. What tips do you have for us that it because writing can be kind of lonely, it's pretty much you and your characters that you're trying to figure out and make work. And then it's also you learn a lot about yourself and rejection. I
Yeah.
have found.
Oh, yes.
So, what are some tips that you can have for anybody that's got inspiration to be a writer, or aspirations, I should say, to be a writer, and just how do we keep going and presenting our work out there, because it's a work of love and it's a work of faith. You know, you have to have a
Mhm.
lot of faith in yourself and a lot of trust in God's timing, and that's difficult for me.
Yes, that is, those are such great questions. Um, so my first thing I often say to anyone who's writing, but often for young people too, find some kind of mentor. So as I think I said, my first draft of my first book was not great. And I was able to find a local chapter of SCBWI, which is Society of Children's Writers and Illustrators. And they had a mentorship program. And so I applied and got it. And that was, I mean, I couldn't have gotten where I'm at without that feedback. So it
Mhm.
was a published author who would work with people and their stories. And like her feedback, like the first time was like, this is an interesting premise, but you sound like a 40-year-old lady trying to act like a teenager. You need to change the voice. And I'm like, oh, okay. So she was great. But that constructive criticism was so
Mhm.
important. So I say you need someone who can do that, whether it's a teacher, a librarian, there's other writing programs. You can't really get that from friends and family so much because anything you do, they love you, so they're going to say it's great. And so you're not getting what you need. So that's my first advice is for that. And then talking about rejection. So that first book, The Perfect Blind Side, I sent out 90 some letters, query letters to different publishers and agents and so forth. And at first it
Wow.
wasn't faith based, it was just clean fiction. And then I eventually realized it was missing the faith part. But yeah, 90 letters. And I heard most of the time I didn't hear anything, but then, got quite a few rejection. But I just kept thinking this, because the story came to me the way it did, I just really felt like it needed to be told. So I just kept persevering. And I did find a publisher who would publish at Pauline Books and Media. Uh, but then which was important to me, I like that. But um, we can talk about this group too, but I'm part of a group called Catholic Teen Books, and majority of those are self-published. Now there are a lot of people, there's kind of people look down on that sometimes, especially it used to be that way. But it's hard to get into the publishing world, especially with Catholic literature, because there's very few publishing houses, and there's only a few of those have fiction books that they'll focus on, and even less of them will take on teen fiction. So it's very limited. And then they only can publish so many books of all kinds in a year. So
Yeah.
even though they might love your story, it's just not going to fit in with their time schedule. So self-publishing has really become a thing that has been wonderful, I think, and wonderful stories, and it doesn't quite have the same thought that people look down on it anymore because it's just beautiful. And or there's also some hybrid ones, publishers out there. But you should always, no matter if you self-publish or what, you need good editors because
Mhm.
that is one thing. I am a terrible editor. I always say commas are my nemesis. I don't know why. I just am the worst with them. And so I realize that. And so I often have, two or three different people looking over things because you know how it's supposed to read. And so you kind of
Yeah.
skip over things. And so those are kind of the pieces of advice I'd have. And uh, when I wrote the book and then it got published, I didn't know anybody in the Catholic um, writing community. And since then, I've become part of Catholic Writers Guild
Mhm.
and met so many other authors, and they've become such good friends. And these conferences, I've learned so much. And so just delve into some of the communities that are out there and keep reading because even now read things and like how something's structured or how that author did something, and I'm always learning and trying new
Yeah.
things.
Oh, that's great. That gives me a lot of hope, because I have a children's book that I wrote, and I pitched it several times to different publishing houses. And like I said, I'm becoming more familiar with rejection, but it gives me hope. I don't think I'm up to 90 yet. So
Well, and sometimes if luckily, like even now, I'll get some rejections from here and there. And if it's so helpful if they have any kind of advice, and then I take it and look at it, and sometimes it fits and sometimes it doesn't with whatever
yeah,
your vision is. But it's like, okay, let me think about that. Did they have a good point? And so often they do, and I'll switch things around or something. So it's all that is always good. And
yeah.
yeah.
So where can we find you and how to purchase your books? And are you on social media? How do we find you?
Yeah, so I have my own website, lesliewahl.com. My name's spelled a little different, but it's probably written in your show notes or something.
Yes.
And or I'm co-founder of a website, catholicteenbooks.com. And there's like 16 of us at the moment. We all write for Catholic teens from middle grade all the way through like college age, all different genres. So it's a great place to find lots of different fiction novels, and you can find all my books there, and then also my website link is there. But that's a really great resource. We have anthologies we've done, we have book packs, lots of things there, and my so I had different publishers. One closed, and one decided not to renew our contract. So actually, all my books are going to be in one place now at Perpetual Light Publishing.
Okay.
So that's kind of an easy place to find them all too.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. And like she said, we will link everything in the show notes so that that's easy to find. And then I have a game that I always play if you're ready to play it. I forgot
Uh-oh.
to tell you this when it's not a hard game. It's an opinion-based game called Odd One Out. So there are no right or wrong answers. I used to be an English as a second language teacher, and this is a game that I play with my students that I love. It gets people talking. It's just a conversation to have. So if you're willing, we can
I'll
play.
give it a try. I don't know. Got
Yeah.
me
No.
nervous now.
So we're going to do summer edition since it's starting to, get really hot in the Midwest where I live, and I definitely need it. So we're going to do, there's three choices. And like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. You just pick whatever choice you think is the right one. And then we talk about it. So your choices are pool, lake, or ocean. How do you like to swim? Do you like to swim in a pool, lake, or ocean, or do you even like to swim? I personally don't always love to swim. I'm okay with putting my feet in the water sometimes, but other than that, like swimming is not my favorite activity, but I like to keep cool. So,
Yeah. I'd have to say actual swimming would have to be a pool.
okay.
But if I'm just relaxing, and the other two would be lovely. But don't really want to, especially the lake. That doesn't sound good to swim in.
I played this game on CatholicMom.com on their podcast one time, and it was so fun to play it because I did the same choices. I did pool, lake, or ocean, and the other two people were from the East Coast, so their first thought was like lake because, or no, it was pool because pools are man-made, whereas lakes and oceans are God-made. And so I live in Missouri, and I said, well, that's not true because in Missouri, all of our lakes are man made. They're all from the Army Corps of Engineers. And they had no idea, which is why I think this game is so fun because you can have these like,
Yeah, you hear all those things.
yeah,
Yeah, that's most of our lakes in Colorado too, are like reservoirs and so
yeah,
forth.
yeah. So I'm going to go with, I can't remember what I answered last time. And see, that's the good thing about this game too is, if you forget what you answered the first time, you can play it a game and have it, or play it again and have another answer. I'm going to go with ocean just because, well, you're in Colorado too, so we're landlocked.
Hmm.
So Missouri and Colorado, not a whole lot of ocean swimming going on.
Yes, that is so true. And I have two books that are kind of set in oceany places. One South Carolina island, went on a cruise ship because, yeah, I do love the water and the ocean, but
Yeah.
although I do get a little seasick, so I have to take some medicine. But
Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. And I will link everything in the show notes. And I'm excited to see what your next book about being in Rome during the conclave will be.
yeah, I'll get started on it. Well, thanks so much. It's been so fun.
Yes. Well, thank you. And listeners, we'll see you next week.